Hello, in this series on the last days, we're asking the question, at least in this part of the series, when is the rapture? Now, there are other parts of the series that have to do with how do we prepare and what are the signs of the Lord's coming, and I'm hope to have a series of prophetic updates going as we get further into this thing. But I'm just starting out right now, and I'm dealing with the question of when is the rapture, and you may know that Jesus had a lot to say about the end times. You probably know that Paul did too, and so did Peter, and certainly John in the book of Revelation had much that was revealed to him of the New Testament authors. There are others in the Old Testament, but of the New Testament authors, they're the big four, and yet James has a little bit to contribute to us. And so I want to talk about this for a moment in the same spirit that I've been going at everything of shaking the pieces out of the box, taking them out of where they've been force fit in all kinds of schemes and ways to just see what each little scripture piece has to say, because the principle for reading the whole of the Bible is to let the plain meaning of the text speak, unless there's something right there in the text that tells you to take it on another level. And so the plain meaning of the text is going to be very interesting with James, because we want to draw the analogy out that he's pointing to in what he says when he says, be patient until the Lord's coming. What's he talking about? The return of the Lord, when the saints are gathered together to him. But he's also pointing to the harvest at the end of the age. And it was Jesus, whom James would have heard in Matthew 13, saying that there will be a harvest at the end of the age. The wicked will be harvested, the righteous will be harvested. There's this tremendous harvest coming. I'll look at that passage in a little bit. But that's the context for the remark that James is making here. And he's saying, this is James chapter 5, verse 7 to 8, just two verses. Be patient then, brothers and sisters, until the Lord's coming. See how the farmer waits for the land to yield its valuable crop, patiently waiting for the autumn and spring rains, which are actually the early and the late rains. The autumn rain being the early rain. It wouldn't be that way with us. The spring rain would be the early rain, but if you know biblical chronology, they date from a calendar that begins in the fall with Yom Kippur, and then it moves around the season like that to complete the year. And so what we have is a picture that in the autumn, the first rains come. The farmer's watching for that. Listen, let's complete the verse. You too be patient and stand firm, because the Lord's coming is near. Now there's that great expectancy on the part of the early church that the Lord was going to be coming in their lifetime. We have it now in our lifetime more than at any other time in the history of the church besides that first century. Now the Lord didn't come in their lifetime. The signs were by no means in place. And if you would look at up here, the signs of the Lord's coming is going to appear at some point in the card section. Then I've got clear and unprecedented signs of this being the last days, that nobody had a right to say it was going to be the last days until these signs begin to fall into place. But that aside, we've got James saying, you need to be like the farmer watching for the harvest. Remember the echo from Jesus' words in Matthew 13, the harvest is going to be at the end of the age. Now what does the farmer do? He goes out and he sows with full expectation that the rains are going to come at some point. And then once the rains come, whether they're the early rains or the latter rains, once they come, then there's going to be this growth phase. And then he's watching the crop, and pretty soon he knows when it's time for that sickle to be put in. Now he doesn't know the day and the hour until it arrives. He might wake up one morning thinking that's going to be the morning, but then he says, no, the conditions aren't quite right. It looks like it's going to rain today or whatever. I'm not a farmer. I'm just guessing. Let's do it tomorrow. So he gathers everybody, and that's the day of harvest. No, the farmer isn't taken by surprise. He's not going to plant the seed and then run around saying to everybody, the harvest might come now. The harvest might come now. It could come at any moment. And this whole bizarre idea that Jesus is going to show up at any moment, it has nothing to do with the language of James, does it? Because James is telling us, no, it is going to be like a farmer. Just be steady and patient, because it's going to be like a farmer. The signs are going to be unfolded. You're going to see the crop getting ready. You're going to have a clear idea when the time of harvest is about to arrive. And on the day when it arrives, you'll know. And so This is the picture from James. It's not a picture of the Lord just suddenly showing up, snatching people away with no signs pointing to his arrival, with no signs pointing to that great day of his return. There's a whole lot more in the series, and somewhere up in the cards you'll have seen the continuing lessons of when is the rapture, but this one shows us very clearly that there can be no sense that Jesus is going to show up at any moment. That's just not a biblical idea. It's true that for the unbelievers, they're going to be taken by surprise and they'll be taken away. But for the believers, Paul says we're not in the dark, and James says we're going to be like farmers in the field, watching the crop moving inexorably towards that time of harvest, with a clear idea that the day of harvest is about to approach. Farmer isn't surprised. He doesn't suddenly wake up one day and say, oh my gosh, it's the day of harvest. No, he's checking, he's seeing the signs, he's checking the plants, he's looking at the weather, and he's seeing the signs. This is the day that the harvest is going to take place. And this is the sign that James is giving us to look at. And so if we want to be there on that day of harvest, we have to be prepared to go through the long season that prepares the world for that day when the harvest comes at the end of the age, don't you think? And I hope to see you come up and let's swap stories on that great day on the other side of all that's coming. See you there, my friends.